The goal of AC Talks is to showcase my constructive critical analysis of various aspects of the Assassin's Creed games. It's my opinion, therefore it does not invalidate other opinions that others might have. Remember that I speak out of love for the franchise and just want to share my thoughts on how I think it could improve. Hope you enjoy. Stealth. A very divisive topic, not only amongst people in the Assassin's Creed community, but in gaming in general. It seems whenever a franchise has some sort of stealth system integrated, there's always a subsection of players that does not enjoy skulking around in the shadows. Because of this, companies sometimes try to streamline those systems to cater to a higher number of players, and what results is an oversimplification of the stealth mechanics and level design. Has Assassin's Creed suffered from this phenomenon? I think it has in some ways. The franchise started with a very basic concept of low profile and high profile and a very simplistic blending mechanic. It worked because it was unique, and hey, Altair does kinda look like a monk.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
After that, the series introduced its signature social blending mechanic, where you only had to mix with a group of NPCs to become completely undetectable by guards. They were simpler times, and Assassin's Creed was still its very own unique brand of game. You had courtesans and thieves to hire, you could distract guards by a commotion set by throwing money on the group, you had smoke bombs. The system was bare bones, but it worked amazingly well, and all these things worked together to help the player be creative in tight situations. After that, a big change happened. Stalking zones were introduced. Usually represented by patches of tall grass or bushes, the player could enter them and immediately crouch to avoid the gaze of enemies. Stuff like sleeping darts and berserk darts were also getting introduced to help the player deal with infiltration scenarios. Now, don't get me wrong. I look back with fond memories of these systems, but there were a bunch of flaws. The AI was super wonky and a lot of weird stuff happened. And speaking of bugs, Unity introduced wall cover mechanics that made you stick to walls like super glue that later translated to Syndicate. Both of these games had nice ideas, but the tank-like controls really hindered the stealth experience for me. And after all of this, we are now at the Witcher-esque RPG era of Assassin's Creed. And somehow, in an open world RPG with more resources available than ever before, stealth and social stealth have suffered tremendously. In theory, they should be better and more developed, but somehow I think the streamlining process has been way too much. Let's explore a few games that do stealth very, very well and have amazing ideas that could be translated into Assassin's Creed. Grab your comfort food or drink and let's go! This game really took me by storm. The combat and stealth are so satisfying that I was constantly having to choose between them both. On release, so many people were calling this an Assassin's Creed ripoff, which is funny because this is superior to what Assassin's Creed brings to the table in almost every way imaginable. Regarding stealth, Ghost of Tsushima has equipable and usable smoke bombs, fluid and functional chain assassinations, tools for distraction, you name it. In my opinion, these are things that are pretty cool to have and essential in any video game that includes stealth. And it doesn't look like much, right? Ghost of Tsushima is recent living proof that amazing combat and a cool functional stealth system can coexist. And what makes it all click together is that the whole thing just works.
It just works the way it ought to. So it all just works. It just all works.
It's functional with a very low bug count for such an open-ended game, and it also allows me to be creative with the amazing level design. And the creativity is pushed even further by the versatility that the tools bring. Hear me out. Horizon Zero Dawn's focus is not specifically stealth, but I wanted to bring it up for a very simple reason. I absolutely loved using stealth in that game, and it's an action RPG open world similar to Assassin's Creed, with fluid and responsive controls and animations. Playing stealthily in Horizon Zero Dawn is an absolute joy. It's so smooth. And you know, the game's stealth has a few flaws, like for example, an entire camp being aware of your presence even if you kill your detector immediately without any alarms being raised. For bandits, man.
We've got company.
Okay. So this is like the problem with some games that have stealth. It's like these guys were immediately cut down, but everyone knows where, like everyone is like, what the hell happened? But what we get in Horizon is just too good to not talk about. Firstly, Aloy has a bunch of tools at her disposal, from traps to tripcasters, from whistles to rocks. There's a bunch of ways to interact with your enemies when in stealth. Creativity is the name of the game, and in Horizon, being creative pays off big time. But what takes all of these things to a whole new level is the fluidity and responsiveness of the controls. Aloy is fast, swift, and extremely agile. You can run, slide quickly into some grass, and immediately roll into another bush while evading detection from enemies. With all of this agility, you end the infamous slow crouch walk through areas and bushes to get to where you want to be. You add expression through movement, and I find that amazing. Because if you're slow and methodic, there's no problem with that and you can still play that way. But if you're a bit more aggro and want to go faster, the possibility is there for the taking. Horizon, I think, is proof that even a simple system with some tools and fluid controls can feel amazing and rewarding. I absolutely appreciate Aloy's agility and how that, combined with all the tools and weapons, allows me to be extremely creative and have varied encounters throughout the entire game. Splinter Cell, one of my favorite stealth series of all time. Just a heads up, I'm going to be showing footage of mostly Blacklist because it was the easiest to record for me. If I had to choose favorites of the Splinter Cell games, I think I would have to go with Chaos Theory or even Conviction. I had so much fun in those games. They really were the games that made me become in love with the stealth genre. Well, Splinter Cell and Metal Gear, of course. Blacklist is definitely the most accessible one out of all of the Splinter Cell games. An experienced player can breeze through it in normal difficulty without much of an issue. But I still wanted to talk about it because it's the most recent Splinter Cell, and I feel like these games always had ideas that would be really cool to implement in Assassin's Creed. The first thing that really jumps out at you is the dark and light system. Basically, whenever you're in a dark area, enemies have a hard time seeing and detecting you. And if you're in a well-lit area, you're basically wide open for detection. Because of this, the game offers many ways to interact with light sources, be it shooting light bulbs, messing with generators, or a simple light switch. Interacting with the environments is always fun, and it elevates the entire mission whenever the level design is on point. Sam Fisher also had a huge arsenal of tools and gadgets to use, which made things even more fun because you could come up with your own playstyle. Splinter Cell missions in the end are always a blast to play, and I would love to have black box assassinations in Assassin's Creed feel a little bit more like an entire Splinter Cell mission, you know, rather than just an open sandbox without much impact like what we have now. Now that's an idea, Ubisoft, run with it. This one's on me. Locust, you said you preferred combat in Ghost of Tsushima. Why are you crying about stealth in Assassin's Creed? Firstly, me enjoying combat a lot more in Tsushima doesn't mean I wasn't a sneaky rascal a lot of times. I was constantly using tools and distractions to clear camps in creative ways. And that's the great thing about these games, they give you a lot of ways of doing something, but these different paths are dip systems that work really well. In my opinion, Assassin's Creed not only has shortened the amount of options the player has, but also has streamlined them too much, essentially leaving us with almost nothing to play with. Let's see what Assassin's Creed is doing wrong and what we can do to improve. Let's get this out of the way first. You have no tools to use in a stealth encounter. As abilities go, I guess you can count using the Raven as a useful stealth distraction, but that's it, that's all you get. And as you can imagine, using one ability over the course of 100 plus hours in a game can get a little boring. Maybe another ability we can count on the list is the chain assassination, which, I mean, is a little bit misleading because the maximum number of enemies you can kill with it is 2, if it works in the first place. All this starvation of tools creates really weird situations. The most awkward one being the necessity of having to fire an arrow to a wall or to the ground in order to distract a guard. Stealth has never felt more weird, but it can improve. For future games, what Assassin's Creed could consider to improve in this regard would be including more tools to use and stuff to do. For example, throwing rocks as a tool that would make a small sound, usually calling 1 or 2 guards depending on their positioning. Then we could have some sort of sound chime that has a wider radius for sound that had the potential to call more guards over to it, essentially giving us tools to adapt to different situations. There could also be environmental distractions like in Splinter Cell, and honestly, implementing a light versus dark system would actually be amazing. More on that later. Equipable and usable smoke bombs need to make a comeback, and chain assassinations need a thorough rework. And if you say, well, I'm not gonna use most of those things, that's fine. The purpose is to give you as many deep and enticing choices for you to create your own playstyle. I can honestly say that I was pretty happy with Valhalla's level design. There was a ton of verticality and a lot of different hidden paths to take. But I think people would appreciate the level design a lot more if there were more ways to interact with it. Right now, the parkour is super slow, so traversing doesn't feel cool, and you can't interact much with the environment besides some traps here and there to drop on your enemies. I feel like if Ubisoft improves the surrounding systems, the level design will shine a little bit brighter and be much more appreciated. I've been asking for this for a very long time. A light and dark system in Assassin's Creed would be amazing. Infiltrating a camp in a thick forest in the dead of night, using the dark and the fog as your cover would be so cool. It would also allow you to interact with torches and fires, creating more darkness if you put them out, and even maybe just act as a small distraction so you can get past undetected. The weather system would also be relevant because different weather types would give off different lightness and darkness values, creating interesting scenarios as you play. You know, sort of like sandstorms in Assassin's Creed Origins. That was pretty cool. Also, if you wanted to be really stealthy, it would incentivize you to wait for nighttime to use all of the darkness to your advantage. Origins was the first one to get rid of social stealth completely, which is a total missed opportunity for a cool and engaging system in my opinion. But Valhalla reintroduces it with some cool ideas, but I think ultimately it falls a bit short. Now, I don't think the culprit is the social stealth system per se, but more the unstable nature of the entire stealth system in Valhalla. In a distrust zone, why are guards so distrusting of Eivor? Even if you're doing absolutely nothing, the guards are all up on your face and can detect you and engage in combat with you super fast. This is an obvious thing that needs to be fixed in the next iterations. Another idea that I've been asking for years and that was actually implemented in a way in Assassin's Creed Liberation is being able to disguise yourself in various ways to infiltrate different places. Just think about it. In Valhalla, Eivor could disguise herself as a thrall and infiltrate Kjotve's camp that way. You could then cause havoc from the inside if you successfully infiltrate. And that could be just one way of completing the objective. If you wanted to fight, you fought. You could also sneak classic style using the environment and killing guards, or you could do it like a true ghost and hide amongst the crowd. Also, in the future, I would love to have assassin recruits and other factions again. They were instrumental in your sneaking journey, and losing them was a big hit for the franchise in my opinion. I really hope it comes back fleshed out and maybe using some new ideas brought over by Valhalla. I know that with big, sprawling open worlds, these systems are hard to implement. There's too many variables and weird things that can happen. After all, it's not a 100% controlled environment. But maybe that's the point. I really think we need to reduce the scope of these games. They're just too big that all the systems contained in it are spread around too thin. Like people say, as wide as an ocean, but as deep as a puddle. And stealth in Assassin's Creed has so much untapped potential. We just need a little bit more investment and creativity put into these systems. I'm a bit sick of having to fire an arrow at a wall to distract enemies, or being frustrated that there's no net with bricks to drop onto some guard's head in the fort that I'm infiltrating. In Valhalla, there's also a bunch of bugs that impact the stealth. Enemies detect you super fast, or the AI bugs and can see you even though you are hiding.
What? Hold there, you! What the fuck?
It's just not stable, and maybe it's this way because there's not enough care being put into stealth. Right now, it feels like an afterthought, and moving forward, if a few things from what I talked about are addressed, I believe that Assassin's Creed can truly bring an amazing stealth system to life. Ubisoft certainly has the pedigree for it, so let's hope for a Pandora to... what the fuck? Better tomorrow. What's wrong with me? Hey, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video. I have a bunch of fun making these videos for you, so if you like them, please remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notified of all of my new videos. I'm also live Tuesdays, Thursdays, and weekends at twitch.tv/locust_SW, and I would love to see you around there. Links are in the description. Thank you so much once again, and I'll see you guys around. Bye!